Okay. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, you've got a book out of poetry called Tears of Change Poetry. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is this your
Tears of Change.
first book, or how many have you written?
First book, first debut book.
Wow. So,
Yeah, so
how come you decided to write this now?
well, several reasons. I've been writing poetry for years and I've been wanting to put something out for years, but I've been so busy with other things because my original profession is interior design. So I've been working and raising the kids. And now that I'm retired, I have the time to work on it. So I said, now's the time, and here it is. It's just a compilation of poems over the last several years that I've written.
Was COVID to blame at all? Did you have more time
No,
because of COVID, or no?
no, I was actually working on this prior to COVID. When COVID hit, last March, well, March 2020, right? But that was a little challenging because it really spooked me. I said, oh my goodness, I'm putting a book out. And now we are in COVID and everybody's in lockdown. But we made it through COVID and everything. And actually, COVID's been good for authors because we get to do virtual interviews now, which means we capture a bigger audience. So, versus going to book signings and things like that.
Well, it's true, and also I
Hmm.
found that it gave some authors a little more time, especially the ones in the more heavily locked down states where they
Hmm.
really couldn't go anywhere. So they said, well, might as well get around to that book I've been meaning to do. And we got a lot of authors come through the show in the past year.
That was COVID induced, I'll say.
COVID
Yeah,
induced, yeah, because
we,
they wouldn't
we
have had time otherwise to write
right. No, and that's well said. That's like when you asked me the question, why now? And life just gets so busy, especially when raising kids and working. And I didn't realize how time consuming putting a book out is. Um, I've heard other authors say it too. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's very time consuming with putting everything in there and laying it out. And I put artwork in. I kind of sourced all my own artwork. So it's been a journey, but it's been a good one. I'm really pleased with it. I'm getting really good feedback. My friends and family have always encouraged me over the years to do something with my work. And so I said, okay, here it is. It's finally out.
So are you self-published? Yeah.
Yes, self-published, which is big now, as you know, right? I went through Christian Faith Publishing, so they did a lot of the layout and stuff. But I pretty much, you have to self-publishing, you do everything pretty much.
Did you have any desires to be traditionally published, or did you send it around at first to publishing houses?
No, I didn't. And that's a good question because, it has changed so much because
Yeah.
that was the old school, right?
Yep.
You used to have to get accepted. So these self-publishing companies, you do have to be accepted. I don't think their guidelines are as rigid though. I've checked into a few of them before I selected the one I selected. And the one I did select, Christian Faith, the contract was very in layman's terms. So it wasn't this, I had to get a lawyer to figure out what it was saying, because it can get quite in depth with some of these self publishing houses. But it is a rather, there's all kinds of avenues. You can go on Amazon, you can publish it yourself, you can do self publishing, or you can go the traditional route.
Well, it sounds like what you went to was a hybrid because the self-publishing route traditionally is you go to Amazon and you stick it up there yourself. A hybrid publisher will have services available to do for you at a fee, at a cost.
Right. That's what I paid. Okay. So that's good to know. It's called hybrid. And I
Yeah,
always thought, I said, self-publishing is just what you said. You publish it yourself. But I've heard it spoken quite a bit that these other publishing companies, like what I went through, are called self-publishing companies. So I don't know where we're mixing up the terminology, but I'll take your word for it with hybrid because there is a fee involved with the route I went, and it's tiered. So there's several different packages you can buy depending
right.
on what you want.
Right. Those are fairly new. Those are hybrid publishing companies, and I've had a couple of people who run those companies on the show to try to explain to people what the difference is. And basically the difference is everything is a la carte. You can pick what you want them to do. If you want someone to do your artwork, to do your cover for you, they will for a fee. They'll have artists available to do that. Generally speaking, they're not as fussy about genre as the traditional publishing is. And they'll take less of a cut than traditional publishing, if at all.
That would
Some of them I saw took no cut. You got everything that your book. You would pay a fee for their services, but then when your book sold, you got 100%.
Right. And the way mine's structured is once I recoup my initial investment with that publishing company, then they take a small percentage of it, which is pretty small. But at least they give you a chance to, get back what you've put into it, because it can get expensive.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it can get up there. So my big thing was I didn't realize, I was so excited to get the book out there. I didn't realize the back end of it, of advertising it. I just thought, okay, I got it out. I'm doing a little bit of advertising with the publishing company I selected. But then you still have to move, further and do some more, like what we're doing today, doing some interviews to promote it.
Exactly. And promotion is a never-ending story. It's something that no matter how large you get as a brand, you're going to be promoting for the rest of your life until you decide that you don't want to be in this business anymore. I saw an interesting statistic that I bring up occasionally. Do you know who the two biggest advertisers in the United States are in terms of dollars spent for advertising?
No.
McDonald's and Coca-Cola.
Wow.
Now,
well, that doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me on one sense, but on another sense, you would think, well, everyone knows McDonald's and Coca-Cola. Those icons are world famous. Who doesn't know of them? Why would they even need to advertise?
I see. Yeah.
If you look at it from that angle, right? But it's exactly the opposite. The fact that they spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year on advertising is why they're the most recognized iconic brands in the world. It didn't happen by accident. Even people at that level. So when you think about, okay, well, if they've got to spend hundreds of million dollars a year, then people who have no name recognition really need to concentrate on advertising probably more than anything else once they get their product done.
Right. And that's very true. That's what I said for advice to any new, people who I get people all the time. Oh, I want to write a book too. And I go, well, you can do it. I did it. You can do it. But just know that there's a back end of it too. There's the initial putting it out there. But then if you don't put in some marketing, like you said, it can just kind of go dormant. And you are so right. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I was thinking of this the other day. I go, will this ever end, marketing this book? I could go on for 20 years marketing this book because, I'm working with a publishing company now and, I'm under contract. But once that ends, then where do I take it from there? So those are some of the things I've been thinking about fast forwarding with all of this.
Well, it's a constant. It's absolutely a constant. And the other trick that I've noticed, at least from the perspective of my show, is it isn't so much the product that you market and publish and promote, it's yourself. Because if you get name recognition, whatever you have accomplished will follow along with you. Because I'm also a musician, I have songs out, I have my shows, I have 2 different shows that I do. And when I go do promotions, I'm promoting myself, my story, not necessarily the show specifically. So it becomes a name recognition thing. If you've noticed that the bigger the author, the bigger their name is on the cover. In fact, sometimes on the cover, their name is bigger than the title of the book.
Like J.K. Rowling, right?
Yeah.
The big ones out there.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Stephen King, David Baldacci, John Grisham, any of them. Their name is at the top of the book, and it's in huge font. And then the title is down below.
Tiny font, right?
Yeah, and it's because the name sells. See, that's the flip, is when you get your name big enough. And
Uh-huh.
it really doesn't matter what you do.
What I
People
sell,
will
huh?
buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I've
It's
learned
true though.
that. Yeah,
Because I thought too, I said, okay, I'm going to start marketing this book. And then all of a sudden it became all about me. And I was
yeah.
like, oh, I didn't want all this attention on me. I wanted it on the book. And then I realized, uh, they're branding me too. So
Sure they are.
I just kind of need to go with it.
There's a billion books out there. There's only one of you. And that's what makes the difference.
I know, and that's so true because I just love bookstores and I'm so happy the bigger ones are still here, like Barnes and Noble. And I do go in there and I just think, oh my gosh, look at all these books. How could I ever pop up out of this sea of knowledge, out of all these books? I put my book out there and said, well, you have to start somewhere. So that's everybody started somewhere with their journey and their careers. And
We've got just a couple minutes left. Do you want to read us a short one? Do you have a short poem
I
from your
do,
book?
I do. And I would I'll read A Rainy Day. This is Somewhere in a Rainbow. This is on contemplation. This is just kind of putting yourself out there and thinking about life and everything. So it's called A Rainy Day, Somewhere in a Rainbow. Within a raindrop so very small exists a light uncontained by walls. It floats in the air, it floats in the sky, unconditionally free. Drops of sereneness flow into me. The sun shines through these tiny prisms. A rainbow appears, leaving thoughts of skepticism. How can something so wet, so small, cast a glowing energy upon us all? The colors are so soft, so bright, a piece of tranquility, a burning light. At the end of a rainbow, some would say, lies a pot of gold if you dare seek one day. But I like to watch the raindrops fall, the sun shining through the tiny balls. When that rainbow does appear, sounds of music fill my ears. A soft, angelic melody of love, a bridge that connects me to God above.
Oh, that's nice. I can tell you're old school because your poem rhymes.
Oh,
It
yeah.
has it has that cadence about it. Where the stuff I've read from 20-year-olds
Oh, yes.
it doesn't rhyme, and I thought, is there any rule about that in the literary world that poems have to rhyme?
Well, just what you said, they've gotten away from it. So I've been to poetry events where it's slam poetry, where, that combines the elements of performance and writing. And you're right, a lot of it doesn't rhyme. They're stories. They're almost like, well, all poetry is a story, but they're almost like a rap to it too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're right. Mine is so traditional. I've said that before. It goes back to, years ago, the kind of the Hallmark stuff that you see out there by Susan Schultz. She's big with Blue Martin Art or June Cotner. So mine's very lyrical though. And all my poems rhyme. They're very, my book kind of takes you through a journey. I talk about the anxiety I suffered through. It's where my poetry originated from years ago. And then I take you through the whole story throughout the whole book. So you can either pick it up and read one poem at a time, or you can pick it up and read my story from front to back. It's a pretty quick read, and I'm hoping that people find it enlightening and inspirational. And I'm big on emotions, lots of emotions with my poetry. So my hope is that one or many of them, one of my poems will move the reader to explore their own emotions, so they can find a deeper place of love and gratitude within themselves.
Okay,
I
great.
do have I do have a website too where I sell some of my poems as poetry overlays.
Oh, you just presumpted me because I was going to tell you
Did
that
I?
we need to wrap this up. And do you have a
Yes.
website that you want to give out?
Yeah.
So
I know. You said I had a couple minutes, so
so go
yes, I
ahead.
do. It's called Tears of Change Poetry.com. And you can order my book through there. It will link you to, the Amazon and the other booksellers. And then it talks about my poetry overlays. I'll just show you right here really quick. It's just a poem that's overlaid over one of your favorite photos. So like if you sent me a photo of like your children, and this is a child's world. This is one of my real popular poems. I would overlay this on a poster, and then you would get your photo with the poem overlaid. And that's just kind of a little idea what it looks like.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. Okay, very good.
So yeah, so it's tearsofchangepoetry.com. You can find me.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your poetry and sharing a little bit of your life with us. Best of luck
Yeah.
with the book. I hope it does well.